it's hard for me to like suppress it because it just always wants to just come out.
Chef Nyesha has been in love with the kitchen since cooking alongside her grandmother. Born in Southern California, Arrington was introduced early to diverse foods such as bulgogi, octopus, and homemade kimchi. These first stages of culinary experiences infinitely shaped Arrington's palate development and her ideas about cooking and culture. A graduate of the Art Institute of California in Los Angeles, Arrington's food is praised as tasting like LA. Chef Nyesha, thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure to be here. And thank you, Yvonne. Super excited about the conversation.
Yeah. So let's just go ahead and get started. I think one of my favorite things about your story is the inspiration and the impact that your grandmother has had in your career path. And you also come from a very creative and musical family. So I want to start off with understanding, how do you bring your sense of creativity into cooking, into the kitchen?
Well, honestly, I'll backtrack. I feel like I'm a very creative, like right brain thinker. So I kind of look at the kitchen and food as a medium sort of self-expression. How do I say, like, as my like life, for my like life palette of different mediums, food is like one of those things. So like I also paint and I sculpt and I draw. And I love all creative things. And I feel like food is one of those things that lives in our soul. Like it is one of those things that can be carried down from generation to generation. And ultimately, it really makes us human. You know, I feel like, especially in a world, today's society, we're driven by tech. And don't get me wrong, I love tech and it helps me with my day-to-day. But I feel like, for example, if I look at, a recipe on YouTube or whatever on my iPhone, it's completely different than if my grandmother's standing next to me and showing me, hey, like, this dough is drier today, or there's more humidity in the air, or this is hard water. Those elements are difficult to express through just visual. So I feel like that tactile, very tangible sort of expression is important. So I feel like, being creative in the kitchen is, for me, it was something that is very natural to me. Like when I was a little girl, I used to cook and I'd have my friends come over. Lifelong dream of mine to have a restaurant and to kind of just carry out the family legacy of my sort of like multicultural background.
I absolutely love that you say that. And how can we, letting our viewers know, how can we, as, maybe we don't have our grandmothers there, maybe we are looking at a recipe on Google or YouTube or whatever it is, how can we make sure that we're bringing that creativity and that experience to our kitchen?
Oh my gosh, Yvonne, that's like the best question ever, because it is. I mean, I feel like my goal in life, like I'm not going to be on the planet forever in like my physical form, but like my ideas can live on, and my, just my vision. And I call that sort of like generational legacy. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, for me, I can like think about a recipe or think about a product that I'm inspired by. And then, if I'm in a kitchen and I'm working with a team of like, cooks, then I can show them, how to make something, how to sort of bring intangible ideas to life. And I feel like recipes are the same. When you look at a recipe, just a general recipe, people should look to recipes. I cannot emphasize this enough as, okay, there's two parts that are very, very important in cooking, right? First part is preparation, and what in the industry we call mise en place, which is French term for pre-preparation or everything in its place. When attempting a new recipe or something you're unfamiliar with that you don't know off the top of your head, you want to read the recipe through first. Read it 3 times. I do that. I'm a chef and I will read a recipe 3 times over, because the reality is, sometimes there's inconsistencies. It might call for a cup of water in the body of the recipe. And then, this is just facts. Like in the procedure, maybe the water wasn't written in, and then you're you've gone through the entire recipe and you're like, oh, why do I have this water? But if you read a recipe 3-4 times, you're like, you can kind of grasp it. And I think that's kind of like the first stage in recipe development. And then from there, measure everything out, look at it. You have your cup of sugar, your half cup of flour, your water, your eggs, look at everything, triple check it. And then you feel good about it. You feel confident about it, which obviously these things take time. Cooking shouldn't be this thing where you feel like you have to like race to the finish line. Cooking is very therapeutic way to nourish our bodies, nourish our families, nourish our soul, and pay respects and homage to Mother Earth for the bounty that she gives us every day. And I feel like, doing those few steps are first very important. Second most important part is that recipes are guidelines. Like it might just be my interpretation of how to make, I don't know, like I'm working on this recipe right now. It's popped in the top of my head because I made it today. But it's called chickpea pasta. Yeah, totally. It's amazing because like I just went on this like health kick and like, lost a bunch of weight, but I didn't really change too much in my diet. I just made small tweaks. So like, for example, the pasta dough that I make is a traditional style pasta dough. It has egg yolks, it has olive oil. Those are good fats. And then I use chickpea or like garbanzo bean flour instead of like a high gluten flour. And I think things like that you're able to kind of just chip away at, you can still enjoy delicious meals, but they're not super heavy on your gut, So I feel like, so like recipes are guidelines, and I say that in that I get not everyone's like has this creative like feather in their hat and you're like, okay, I read this recipe, but I want to do this. And you like vary from the recipe. But I think that you can sort of tailor small things, if you want to add like a little bit of cilantro to something or a little bit of parsley or a little bit of rosemary and kind of tailor it to your flavor profile or what's in season. Maybe basil is in season. And, if it's like a peach salsa and you're like, and it calls for cilantro or something and you're like, oh, I want to add basil, or I just only have basil. I think those are like the things that people that are just like reading a recipe on Google or searching a video on YouTube can not be afraid to substitute things out and do research because it's like a puzzle. You like have all these pieces and you just kind of put it together based off of like what is in your like terroir.
Yeah. Well, one, now I'm hungry just envisioning all of everything that you talked about. And then second, I consider myself one of those people that's like, I can't cook. But what you just described to me kind of opened up this whole other part of cooking that I hadn't even thought about. It's paying respect and homage to your ancestors and all the things that they, cooked and how you can sort of tweak them and make them your own. So I think that's super special that you said that. So thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
And speaking of substituting and making things healthier, studies show that, or there was a new survey that said that people were gravitating towards plant-based sources of protein. I was wondering if you have any best tips for plant-based meals this season.
Oh my gosh, this is the best question ever again, because I'm so freaking passionate about it. I myself went on this like plant-based journey last year and I was like strictly vegan, like 110% alkaline vegan actually. And then I went to Hong Kong and like food is a little bit different there. Like their idea of like plant-based stuff is like, it's still cooked in pork fat. It just doesn't have pork in it. So it's just a little bit different. And so I ate all those things. But since then, my diet is basically 70% plant-based and 30% meat. And I eat meat more consciously, I'll say. I eat meat if I know where it's coming from, if it's organic, because factory farming has really just has impeded our health so much, and I get really nervous about the food that I'm putting in my body because I'm very passionate about gut health because they call our colon and our gut our second brain. And I've done a lot of research on it and I'm firsthand been a product of that, So one thing I'm really passionate about is adding vegetables to as bases. Like, for example, this is a really interesting, you heard it first here thing, I think.
Yes.
So I slow roast carrots, right? Like slow roast carrots, just like peel carrots, put them in like, maybe like some aluminum foil or like a tray, and put some water, a little bit of olive oil, salt, throw them in the oven, forget about them, just like 325 degrees, slow roast them for like an hour, 2 hours, so they're really soft. And then I blend it, and then I'll like add in, or emulsify, it's a fancy term for kind of like a cohesive mixture. Mm-hmm. And I'll use that for like spreads for like sandwiches instead of mayo, because like I love sauces so much. So like I'll make a vegetable base, and like, say that carrot sauce is thick, and I want to just add a pop of acid, so I just put a little lemon juice in it. You can use that on a sandwich spread. You can use it as, put it in your hummus that you made, and now you have like a roasted carrot hummus. You could thin it out and add some water to it, toss it in your chickpea pasta, and then you have like a carrot sauce on your pasta. So I think demystifying cooking is a lot about just making a base thing, and then you have like, that's like your thought bubble, and then you have like these subsidiary dishes that you can make from your one thing. I hope that answered the question. I went in so many different directions.
No, that totally did. And it makes me feel like I overcomplicate cooking. Like you've made it seem so simple, and like I can just do it with the foods that I absolutely love. So thank you. And
yeah, I think that happens to a lot of people.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a thing. And I think it's a common theme for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so then I kind of want to end this segment, I want to ask you, how are you approaching your own creativity and the protection of your energy with, a pandemic going on? And, how are you approaching this and still being creative in the kitchen and in cooking?
Oh, I love it. How am I protecting my creative energy? Well, for one, it's hard for me to like suppress it, because it just always wants to just come out. So I started a huge painting that I have hanging up, and I took this kind of different approach. I would normally wait to hang up my paintings, and this one I hung up, and I just like revisit it every day, or like once every couple weeks as I saw fit, and I'd like, paint and do things. And I feel like it's my best way to think, because I feel like as I paint, other ideas pop into my head, or like, things I forgot about, and so, for me, it's been the opposite during this like COVID, like stay at home order stuff. Like I've been the most creative because I think my bandwidth was able to open up. So I started like writing a lot. I started painting. I started, developing a lot of food content, and just like writing my recipes down, because for me, it's like, it comes second nature. So I just make something, but then the next person's like, how did you do that? So I've been a lot more willing and ready to write things down and share it with people, via Instagram or whatever. But that's been a fun way for me to like keep that like creative juices going.
Cool. I am so happy to hear that, because the more creative juices are flowing, the more recipes we all get to enjoy. So
totally.
Well, thank you so much, Chef Nyesha, for joining us today. It was amazing to talk to you and to sort of demystify cooking and creativity.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Yvonne.